You're listening to Travel Tales with Virgil.
Hello, my name is Virgil O'Keefe and you're very welcome to the podcast. I walked on the famous Camino de Santiago pilgrimage route in Spain this year for this 3-part Camino Special Podcast series. Along the way, I interviewed many interesting people including fellow walkers, pilgrims, guides and historians. The Camino is over 800 kilometres from the Spanish border in the Pyrenees to Santiago de Compostela in Galicia, and it typically takes a walker between 30 to 35 days to complete. I bought the hiking boots I wore on the Camino in the last century. I got them in 1999 to be precise, and since then they've carried me on walks throughout the world. They gave me blisters when breaking them in on the Inca Trail in Peru. The front lace flaps melted when I left them to dry by a campfire in the Indian Himalayas after a very long day traversing a snow-covered pass. I remember looking down at my slightly dislevelled and dusty old boots, pounding the gravel on the Camino and thinking about all the walks they've been on. But why did this one feel so special to me and to so many people? I asked this simple question to many pilgrims during my Camino to try to find the answer. The word I kept hearing and coming back to is magical. The Camino is a truly magical pilgrimage, and I hope these 3 episodes convey in some small way why the Camino is so special to so many people around the world. Today we are going to hear from some of the fascinating people I met along the way, starting now with Jarlath O'Madain, who I met on the Camino and I interviewed the day he finished his Camino. So what is your impression now that you've done it? You've done the whole Camino, like the French Camino. Like, what is your impression of it?
Probably without doubt, it's probably the best thing I've ever done, in my whole life, physically for sure, but just to take a whole month out, and just to have spent all that time with people, I say doing the physical work, but also just going through Spain. I mean, what a beautiful, I never thought I would actually get to the end. And, there was one stage, it was a realization that it was actually getting close to the end and none of us wanted it to end. And then, sort of like on that physical journey, you do sort of think about, life in general. And that's whenever I say, well, this is just a bit like life, isn't it? At some stage the journey will end. Like death does come to us all. There's no question about it. And life in general, you just have to get on with it and sort of make the most of every day and enjoy every day, like as we did on the walk, and didn't talk about it ending. You said, no, just this is beautiful today. The scenery's nice, the food's good, the company's good, our feet are killing us, but you just have to get on with it or don't. Yeah, and many people don't get on with it. They just sort of opt out for a couple of days, to recover and recuperate. But as I said, it's just a bit like life in general. And I think one of the nice things about doing the Camino is you've got so much time on your hands that you can actually try and think about things and try to, make sense of whatever your life is like at that moment. But for me, it was just like a reconfirmation of me, and I'm pretty broad-minded anyway, and sort of just realizing, life is just about making the most of what you've got and just get on with it. Don't complain, enjoy it as much as possible, help people.
Just to let people know that we met you, the crew I was with, we met you in Burgos, I think it was, in a restaurant. And, when I arrived in Santiago, actually, I was walking past a girl, I think she was German, and she was saying that she was happy when she was walking, but she didn't know what she was going to do now, like you described. She sort of sounded like a guy said to her, why don't you just keep going?
Well, yeah, you could, and it does give you purpose, and every day, you have to get up. First thing you do is you sort your feet out, put your cream on, get the Vaseline out, rub it all over your feet, put some Compeed on your blisters if you need to do that, or you would usually do that the night before. Just get your stuff together and out you would go. So it's having real purpose. And funnily, waking up yesterday morning, which was the first time I didn't have to go to walk. It was like, oh, what am I going to do today? It was like a bit of an empty feeling. But that was filled because I got here 2 days before I had planned to get back. So other people we had met were still coming in. So the excitement was sitting up in the plaza in front of the cathedral, waiting for our friends to come in. And everybody that you had met for the past month was just coming in. And that was actually one of my highlights. One of the exciting bits was seeing everybody else coming in and just looking at the relief, the happiness, the excitement on every single person as they sort of come in there, and that was magical. But getting up to the square and just watching people, I could sit there all day, just looking. It's such a wonderful place.
Because the day I was there, I kept going back to the square. I love that, just standing in a corner and watching the different reactions. Some people just lie on the ground and look up at the church, or people are hugging or singing. And I actually started, I actually was like singing a song. As I was coming in through that tunnel area, the covered area where the bagpipes were playing. And I was singing a song from My Fair Lady that I used to sing when I was a kid. It's funny.
Also at that moment, because I didn't quite know that the cathedral was there, but once I heard the bagpipes and that tunnel says, right, I'm nearly there. And I was taking lots of video of the whole journey, comment on it. And I was speaking, but I had to actually stop it because I was nearly in tears, just with whatever feeling it was of just getting there. It was, I don't know, I can't even remember being that excited, about anything else, maybe Liverpool winning the Premiership or Down winning in All Ireland or something like that, which is rare. But it's just that feeling of actually getting there was just something really, really special.
And that is after how many days were you walking then?
31.
Wow.
So yeah, 31, and I walked every day. I had sort of planned to take 35, with a few stops and a few layovers, but it just felt that I had to keep going every day. And, I didn't want to have what people call a rest day. I just enjoyed this whole walking thing. And interestingly, as you know, you can send your bags ahead to the next stop if you want to. So I decided to send my bag ahead that day, just walk the 36 kilometers. But that day, my back was killing me. The pain was excruciating without the backpack. And ever since then, I've just put the back on. And, after a while, you don't even know you're wearing a backpack, but for some reason that day without it, it was just very uncomfortable. And, so that was the only day I did that. But wearing the backpack, there's something comforting about it, something physically comforting about it, but certainly just to have everything with you, what's in that bag, it's just a nice thing to be walking around with.
And you started in France, didn't you? You went over the Pyrenees.
In France, in Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port. And actually arrived. I've got the flight from Dublin to Biarritz, and I was coming out of the airport in Biarritz. There was a few other, pellegrinos. And it was just this girl, and I turned around to her, and she actually lives in Dublin, but she's from Poland. She's a wine taster. So part of her Camino was actually trying to check out all the different wines, And we got out of the airport, and I said, how you get into Bayonne? Because that's where you get the train from to go to, Saint-Jean. She said, I was going to walk it. I went, what? Walk? It's way too far. And then I realized, well, actually, I'm here to walk 790 kilometers. So we walked from the Biarritz airport to Bayonne train station, and that was 7 kilometers. So it was at the start of my Camino. So I had an extra 7 compared to everybody else, And then it's interesting, once we got the train, it was just full of pellegrinos. It was like something from Harry Potter, they're all going back to school again on the train. It was just the excitement, people. And there was young people, old people, and just all the excitement. And interestingly, that's I think one of the first observations I noticed. People were either very old or very young, like in their 20s or my age plus, and that's because the rest of the world have to go to work. It was only people who are retired or maybe unemployed or retired like I was, or just finishing university or before they go to university, these young people were going. but not many people, in the sort of mid 30s to the sort of mid 50 bracket. 'Cause somebody has to keep the world, rolling along.
Was it different than you imagined it was going to be?
To be honest, I didn't really know what it was going to like to be, But yeah, look, it was completely different. What I think now about it compared to 31 days ago, it's completely, I didn't realize how many people you would meet and how strong those bonds would become with people we'd never even heard of 31 days ago. And then before you know it, you've emptied your heart to them. They know everything about you. You know everything about them. And so that was something I wasn't really expecting. I think the walking was easier than I thought it was going to be, so I was sort of surprised by that one. But I was reasonably fit anyway, and I was doing a bit of walking up in the mornings, this summer anyway. And I was over in London with my daughter, and I was walking around London. And that wasn't preparing for the Camino, I was just doing that. So the walking was a lot easier than I thought. I actually enjoyed the hostels more than I thought I was going to do. Sleeping in a room, I think one had 133 beds in it. That was massive. But, due to the pandemic, most of them were at sort of 50% capacity. So, there's nobody in a bunk bed above you.
So did you always stay in the hostels?
No, 3 nights I took single accommodation, basically just to get some sleep, because I hadn't realized how light of a sleeper it was. And one person zipping his rucksack or opening a bag of nuts would just wake me up, So then at the start, I think after 5 or 6 days, I just booked into a single room just to get some sleep. And the single rooms were fantastic. There was luxury, your own little sink, your own little, room, your own space was good. But the thing is, in the albergues or the hostels, it was nice just to meet other people. And I think one of the highlights of those was some of what they call Pellegrino meals. When the albergues would just say like €7, €10, do you want dinner? And that would be fantastic. You just sit on a table with complete strangers, have your starter, your main course, your dessert, and basically as much red wine as you could drink. So that was good. To meet people that way as well.
How much do they cost, the hostels? Was there general? I
think roughly the cheapest I paid was €7. And I think the most expensive was about €15. I think fantastic value, hot, always good showers, a bed to sleep in. They're always clean. They had washing facilities, washing machines, whatever. I used to do my washing in the shower with me, because the water was hot and you had shampoo, and that was the easiest way, although lots of them don't like you doing that one. So that was good, but great value for money,
And very good from the social point of view. That's where you kind of get to meet people who are traveling on their own, I'd say, isn't it?
Fantastic. Well, to be honest, the majority of people are traveling alone. That's what I felt. There was very few people who were there as a group.
And so, I would call it like, the magic. I don't know what this magic is that the Camino has, but it definitely has it. And I really felt it more when I came home, actually. And that's one part of it, is the camaraderie among people. I think people are going with that mindset because a lot of people know they went, you'll meet people. So everyone's open to meeting people.
Yeah, definitely, but you do have to make the effort and talk to people yourself, not just wait for people to come and talk to you. But that's certainly a magic moment, just talking to people, meeting people. And then I suppose like life, certain people you just bond with more, and that becomes your little band of people that you're with each other for a whole month, like your Camino family, as we sort of called it, and then you set up your little WhatsApp group, and is everybody okay? Where are you going tonight for dinner? Blah, blah, blah. And it's just like a little family group. And, sad, like for the last 2 days, you get your ping. Somebody's just flown back to Dublin. Gerhard's just flown down to Valencia to meet his family. Somebody else has gone off somewhere else, and you're saying, right, my goodness, they're all going.
And,
you
and
know.
how does it work then when you're walking with people? Because just say, I've done walks where you meet someone on day one, and then you're going, gosh, I don't want to get lamped with this person for 30 days. Or I like kind of mixing. So is it kind of relaxed that way? Do you
It's for, yeah, we sort of called it the Camino bubble, you know, where you could actually feel like you have to stay with these people for the whole time. But I don't know that, I mean, there's no written laws or rules to the Camino, but it must be somewhere that it's just dead easy. You know, you don't walk with people in the daytime if you don't want to, or if they don't want to, or don't even talk to them. And like, and you know, I could be walking with you for 10 minutes and then I'll just walk on. So it's all to do with the pace you're walking at, you know, and you don't just stop your pace because of someone else, or if you're talking to somebody and they're slower and they said, no, no, go ahead, don't worry about it. In the same way, you know, in the evenings, if you don't want to have dinner together, then you don't. Like, nobody takes it personally, and you can just do whatever you want to do. And that's one of the nice things as well about it. You don't feel that you're stuck with these people if you don't really want to do it, you know. And so that's not a bother, and nobody takes anything personal at all whatsoever.
And for the accommodation, would you book in advance, or was it literally then each day as you went along, you had a rough idea what you're going to do and then arrive in a place? Or how did it work?
Now, to be honest, I booked in advance. Probably every 2 days, I would know roughly where I'm going to be staying, you know. And you get a lot of all these sort of, you know, people on the grips, you know, so that's not the proper Camino. You have to just, you know, decide where you're going to go, because it means you're walking to your booking, not the Camino. But I think that's a load of rubbish, really. Everybody's Camino is their own Camino. Do what you want to do, you know, stay in a 5-star hotel if you want. But booking was really easy. So I used booking.com a lot. And that was fantastic, because that actually told me where I was staying, you know, because you have the app tells you exactly where you're at. So you don't need to be rummaging around emails to see where you're staying. So for the most part, booking.com is fantastic. And there you can see the hostels and the albergues, as well as single accommodation, whatever you wanted. But lots of the places would actually not use booking.com, because they know they get more money for themselves if people book it independently. But there's lots of brilliant apps you can use. One's called Buen Camino, and then there's another one called grons.com, and they list all the albergues. They've all got telephone numbers, email addresses that you can contact them. I also found out when I emailed them, they would say you're full, but if you call them, they'll say yes, no problem, we can accommodate you. So it's well worth giving it a phone call as well, and just to make sure that you can get a place. But never had any problem getting accommodation.
And that first leg over the Pyrenees, is that one of the hardest stages?
Look, if you read all the books that said it's the hardest stage, you know, I actually didn't think it was the hardest stage, to be honest. You know, I don't know why. It's because, you know, I've walked up, slept on it a few times, you know, and it just reminded me of the Mourne Mountains and going up there. But I think you've got so much adrenaline in you on the first day that you could do anything. You know, you could walk to the moon and back again. But it was a bit tiring coming back down to Roncesvalles. You know, I remember that bit, and very glad to get my accommodation. But you know, it's a tough climb, because you go up to, I think it's 1,400 meters, but I think you're starting already at about 600, so it's not a massive climb. I think we were lucky because the weather was fantastic. You know, just a little bit of light cloud cover, so not too hot, but you can see all the views. So I didn't think it was that hard, but they reckon it's the hardest leg on the, I was going to say, on the tour, on the Camino, you know. But definitely, it's definitely worth starting from there. I think just that achievement when you walk over this cow grate, and that's the border between, you know, Spain and France. You know, it's a bit like, you know, where I live, going over the border, you don't even know you're going over it. You know, but that's fantastic feeling once you know you're in Spain. But just to think you're actually walking through the Pyrenees and over the Pyrenees it's a brilliant thing just to keep thinking about as you're doing that one. And then lots of people would stop at Orison, which is the first stop going up the mountain, and then they would actually continue the next day to that one. But I think if you're going to do it, it's well worth doing that first stage.
So what is your impression now that you've done it? You've done the whole Camino, like the French Camino. Like, what is your impression of it?
Probably without even, without doubt, it's probably the best thing I've ever done, in my whole life, physically for sure, but just to take a whole month out, and just to have spent all that time with people, I say doing the physical work, but also just going through Spain. I mean, what a beautiful country, and I mean, I've always loved Spain, and my intention was always to retire in Spain, which is still the intention, but that's just made me even more excited now. I think I can be living here one day. But gone beyond any of the expectations I did have about it, way better. Even though people said to me, Jarlath, you'll love it, it's brilliant, you'll love it, I said, okay, right, yeah, whatever, I'll love it, but really did love it, and I would certainly want to do it again, I would like to do it, I've got 4 grown-up kids, so I would like to do it with them, either in stages together or separately. I'm a bit of a last minute sort of person, so they said, Dad, we just need a bit of notice because we actually go to work, and have to take leave. I says, right, sorry, because I only decided a week before I was going that I was actually going to do it, But, so we'll do that hopefully, maybe next summer or next Easter or whatever,
Are you spiritual? Like, did you find it was spiritual, or was it nature, or what was the thing?
It was all of those things. It was all multi-sensory, There was many things, while there was nice things to look at, things to listen to, obviously spiritually as well, not necessarily religious thing. I suppose one of the surprising things that did actually, I don't know, make me a bit more religious, because I'm Catholic, but I wouldn't say I'm a highly practicing Catholic, but I did love the churches, and all the religious symbols and stuff like that we saw. I mean, the cathedrals are just stunning. I was also with the small churches, and the thing that I got from it, because there was crosses everywhere, there was statues everywhere, was just like, the Catholic Church was here just basically to say to people that we're here to look after you. Everywhere you'll see some type of symbol, so don't worry, everything's fine. And that's what they did along the Camino, the Knights Templar, and they built churches just to say people, you're safe now, even if that was before, after the sort of the Muslim or the Moor Empire left, these churches were put there to say, you're safe, don't worry, it's okay, it's good. So I really enjoyed that bit, and I wasn't even thinking about that bit at all. And I went to the Mass in the Leon Cathedral. That was beautiful. I went to Mass in the cathedral yesterday morning in Santiago, stunning as well. And, the big Buta Primera, hanging there. And it was just, wow, I'd love to see that in action, but they didn't, swing that or whatever the term is for that one. So certainly I did enjoy one little place we were in. There was a pilgrims service, and the priest had us all up singing in our different languages and praying and reading, and that was nice as well. So yeah, I definitely did enjoy that bit, and that wasn't part of why I went on it, but it was nice and it was good, and so I enjoyed that bit.
And if you had to pick, like, was there a particular, the 4 regions, I say they're very different from each other. It's like going to nearly 4 different countries.
Yeah.
Was there, which I think is what makes it,
It certainly does, and I think if you're doing the whole Camino, you actually get to see that. Whereas if you're doing stages, then you don't actually experience that one. But I mean, the hardest bit I thought was walking across what they call the Meseta, which is a high plateau. There's no trees really. It's just all, and because of the time of the year, the harvest were all done, so everything looked like a desert at times. And we were lucky; our weather was brilliant, so it was very hot. So that was quite hard going, because at lots of places there was no services or bars or restaurants or anything, for a long time. So that was hard going. I loved walking through Navarra and Rioja with all the vineyards. Just walking through those vineyards and actually eating the grapes was just unbelievable. you know. But then when you got to Galicia, you know, so you got the mountain to Cerejo, and you could be back in Ireland. You know, it is Ireland, I think, in Spain. You know, and it was just, this is just like being at home. Even the smells. You know, I live in most of us in Ireland, rural places. You know, you're familiar with somebody driving cattle down the road, and you know, cow dung everywhere, and you know, it was just very much like home, and I sort of felt very much at home. And even as well, when you go into Old Cerejo, I know it's a bit commercial, but they're selling all these Celtic signs, you know, and say to people like this, you know, this is like home. I was trying to explain to some people about, you know, the 7 different Celtic nations, you know, like, you know, Galicia being one of them. So that was fun. But my favorite places were just the Spanish towns early on in the Camino, like Leon, you know, or Logroño, fantastic place. Even Estella was fantastic as well. Pamplona was great, you know, and but especially during those regions, there was lots of little villages and bars and restaurants. You'd turn a corner and everybody was sitting, having a coffee or a beer. The Spanish like to have beer in the morning, you know, with their bocadillos, their massive big sandwiches, you know. So it was fantastic. Everywhere was great, but certainly I would recommend people to certainly go to Logroño as one of those places. Burgos also, you know, fantastic town, and something completely different would be Cerejo, up on top of the you know, up on the top of the mountain when you're about 1,300 meters, you know.
The border of Galicia, you're just arriving then.
Yeah, that's it. The borders are with Castilian and Leon and Galicia. And interestingly, little things that I've noticed, you know, and all the signs, it'll say which region you're in. So when you're in Castilla y Leon, you know, the people from Leon have rubbed out Castilla. And then when you get to Castilla, they've rubbed out Leon. I said, yeah, this is a bit like home as well for me.
Yeah.
Very territorial, you know. So that was interesting as well, just little things like that, you know.
And the food is gorgeous in Galicia.
The food's fun. Oh, you know, but
the seafood.
Seafood. Like I had the best pulpa ever in my whole life the other day in Milides. Pulpa is octopus, and this town's famous for it. And you're walking past and they're giving you little free bits, and with the padron peppers, you know, it's fantastic. But even, you know, the tapas, the pinchos, you know, and in some places you pay for it, but in other places, every time you get a drink, you get something to eat with it. You know, I think Leon was like that, you know, just so good, you know, and you can just see how happy and relaxed the Spaniards are sitting in the plazas, having their food, their drinks. Kids are running around, having a good time. So you can see why, you know, people in Spain live longer than most other European countries. You know, they don't seem to be as stressed as the rest of us, you know.
You know what, the funny thing, and I'm sure, I mean, I've done walks in other parts of the world and it's similar, but maybe this one a bit more. I just say I only met you, we had a little chat in a restaurant a few weeks ago, but you kind of see people, you meet people on the Camino. I can understand how people do go back. Maybe it's because people are so open on the Camino, or there's something about the connections that are made there.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right, you know, and it's I mean, I definitely, even talking now, I want to do that again. I want to be, you know, sitting in a restaurant and meeting new people and having a chat and going for a nice walk. And it's just all of those things, you know, like that last bit of the walk, you know, the last day, especially through forest most of the way, you know, and especially in the autumn time, it's just stunning, you know. But look, I wouldn't want to do it if I couldn't meet people. So if it was just the walking, I definitely wouldn't be interested, you know. Or if it was just a social thing, but that big walk in the daytime is fantastic, you know, and just being able to do it at your own pace. And, you know, there's times I did walk with people, but most of the time I walked alone. And I loved it. And my favorite thing was getting up early in the morning and walking in the dark and, you know, getting a good start to the day. You know, you put the wee torch on your head and off you go, and looking for the yellow arrows everywhere, you know, to make sure that you don't get lost.
You know, when we were talking to you actually in the restaurant, John was talking about people like having kind of going with a question and whether we get answered. And did you find that people were sort of, they were looking for something?
Some people were, definitely, and some people got very philosophical about it. I think, like in life, some people overthink things anyway, like one of the guys I was with, German guy, he said, look, people keep asking me if I found out why I'm going or spurred some meaning. He says, I don't know. He says, I'm feeling guilty. I said, I'll just make it up,
Yeah.
But like for me, I just, as I was saying, I was working in Malaysia, and the pandemic meant I couldn't get to see the family or any of that for nearly 2 years. So I just quit basically. And then I got home and it says, right, shall I retire or whatever? I think I said, I don't know if I'm unemployed or retired. I think unemployed is probably a better description of it. But interestingly, on the, so I wasn't sure. So I was looking for answers for that as well. So like, what am I actually going to do next? Like I'm sort of 58 years old with a mind of a 17-year-old, looking for a gap year and travel and adventure still. My mother just shakes her head at me, But interestingly, during the Camino, I was actually offered a job,
That's good.
And this is very strange, because I'm a school principal of like international schools, and this is what I've been doing. And I was actually offered a job for a Catholic school group in the United Arab Emirates, which is very rarely unheard of. And I hadn't realized that, in the Middle East, they've allowed the church to have to set up some schools, not necessarily as church schools, but just as a school group, to try and, just give a different sort of slant on education. So part of that was me having a couple of Zoom interviews and being offered a job as well. So that's what I'll be doing after this.
Wow.
And the other interesting moment happened the other day, and I would usually have an apple for my breakfast. So go to the supermarket night before, buy an apple, buy an avocado, and a tin of sardines. And that would be my little sort of snack. And the other morning, I said, I forgot my apple. And there was lots of like apples lying on the ground, all rotten, so I wasn't going to eat those. And as soon as I said, where's my apple, I heard this thud behind me, and an apple fell off the tree right behind me. And I said, I better eat that. So I went and picked it up, and it was unbelievably sweet and beautiful apple, So they do say the Camino provides. So, it did provide for me the apple and a job and a bit more, so I know now where I'm going after this.
I met so many captivating guides who were full of knowledge, and this really brought the Camino's history to life and helped me get an understanding of the different cultures of each of the 4 very different regions that you pass through when you're walking on the Camino. First now we're going to hear from my brilliant guide, Helder Cerejo. You said a lovely thing about the Camino's for everyone. You remember that? It's wild, or it can be.
It can be history. It can be by with yourself. It can be just like a sports thing. For some, it's like a sport, or for others, it's in the middle-age crisis. I want to make sure I can continue to do things as I was doing it 30 years ago. All of these things are happening here in the Camino. It's that probably that makes the Camino so open to so many people. It's not only religious. It's not only looking for yourself. It's also another way of looking to another country.
It's like you can do it in the refugios, or you can do it in hotels. There's many different ways.
Yes, well, if you're more frugal, if you're more into doing the pilgrimage, you probably will opt for refuges. If you're more into touristing, more into the tourism, the making a 2-week holiday, having this way of experiencing things, you will have a bed and breakfast, and your luggage will be transferred instead of carrying a big backpack. This is much easier. No big backpack, but you still enjoy all the same struggles, all the same rocks that you have in the Camino,
Exactly.
but in a more comfortable way. Then you can have a even better experience. You have a car which supports you, and you can have a picnic put for you, it's waiting for you there. But that's not really making a pilgrimage.
Yeah,
It's a bit different.
I know. And I like that the refugio we saw earlier on. It was by the monk. That's the next level, isn't it?
The thing is, probably you will like one at a time.
Exactly.
Every day, I'm sure you will not.
No, but to experience it.
Yeah,
You know what it was like originally.
That experience is
No electricity, just monk. You could smell the incense in the room.
exactly. But the thing is, as I just told you now, that probably for us modern, will be experienced for 1 day, 2 days at the most in the old Camino. I don't think that we are able to disconnect at the moment.
Yeah.
We want to, but I think our cell phones are stick to us at the moment.
Exactly. So all the churches that we keep going to are usually around the 12th century, aren't they?
Most of them were start to build in the 12th century, exactly because of that reconquest. We are on that moment where the Camino were able to be done, as the kingdoms were coming to the south. You were Asturias, the kings from Asturias started to conquer terrain here. The same happens in Castilla y León. We are in Castilla y León, the part in León. The king at the time were pushing the Moors south, and the royalty moved their royal houses from what was Asturias to the north of Castilla y León. León became the head of the crown in the 12th century. So most of these churches had to be built virtually at the same time as they were moving to south.
As the armies were moving, the clergy were sort of behind.
Exactly, always behind. They were together. The clergy and the royalty were hand on hand, especially in the Catholic countries. They were. They attacked the Moors because it was like a saint war, because they needed to relieve the Christian from the oppression of the Moors. It was like going to Jerusalem to
Well, the Crusades were at the same time.
Exactly, the Crusades were at the same time, and the church wanted to expel the Moors, the Muslims, south, or out of the peninsula, because in the 5th century, the Catholic, not the Catholic, but Christianity, were in all the peninsula. So when in 700 and something, when the Moors invaded the peninsula and got almost to the top in just little than 20 years, they expelled all the Christians from this area. Or they were converted, or they had a very, very hard time. So kings needed the approval from the Vatican to be a king, and the Vatican needed the influence of a king to reach other areas. That's why they moved together as they were south.
And before that, sort of the northern route was the one, but then the French way, it was safe to travel then.
Exactly, safe on the 12th century. So now they could receive pilgrims, and the churches started to grow along the Camino.
That never stopped. Next, we're going to hear from my lovely guide Ursula, who's originally from Peru, talking about that lovely tradition on the Camino of everybody greeting each other with the phrase Buen Camino.
Onward and upward. Do you get the idea?
Yeah.
Yes, that is where the real sense of the sentence ultreya and then etsuseya, no? Onward and upward. Because at the end, what's a phrase you use to encourage the people to continue up to Santiago in the Middle Ages.
And what's the phrase?
Ultreia et suseia is a Latin expression that means onward and upward. So on the Camino, on the 12th century, at the 12th century, especially on those centuries, that's how the pilgrims encouraged themselves on the trail, saying this word.
And now the modern version.
Buen camino.
And everybody says
but
that.
No, yes, buen camino. Especially in Spanish, even the language you use is buen camino. Because the camino, I say the camino, you heard that we say also in English, sometimes not usually using the San James way. Usually just shorting and cutting with the name of Camino.
Yeah.
Is how a lot of people means the Camino de Santiago. It's the Camino.
Yeah. It's a lovely tradition. Everyone's saying Bon Camino.
Yeah, so yes, buen camino. They're expecting you to have a nice walk, a good day on the trail. So buen camino. So that is a phrase that at the end of the walk, the people, usually the neighbors, the restaurant, the hotel, everybody said to the pilgrims. You know? And imagine being in this scenery here in Navarra, usually when they start the walk, since, well, probably from their homes in Germany or France,
England, even
Ireland also. Ultreia to say it's going to be a huge adventure, no? Ultreia et Susega.
Now you're going to hear from my guide Patricia Longa, who I walked with on the Galicia section all the way into Santiago, and we had great chats about the history of the city and about St. James and lots more. Here now is a little clip from Patricia.
So legend says that Pelagius one night he saw something of shooting stars falling down from the sky in that spot, like thousands and thousands, and he started to hear some strange kind of voices coming from that spot. So he thought that was a very strange phenomenon. So he thought that maybe that was something like mystic or sign from God. So he decided to inform the bishop about what he had witnessed, those stars falling down from the sky. So the bishop traveled to the spot highlighted by Pelagius, and there he found the ruins of a small crypt, subterranean crypt. So he just went down the crypt and he found 3 tombs. And in one of the tombs there was an inscription that said, this is the tomb of the Apostle St. James the Greater, one of the 12 apostles of Jesus. And the other tombs were the tombs of Theodorus and Athanasius, they were the main followers of St. James, the ones that brought the mortal remains from Jerusalem to that spot. So that's how they discovered the tomb, because of the stars that fell down from the sky in that spot. So when pilgrims started to come to visit the tomb, and they heard this legend, this story of the stars, and they started to call to that place the Campus Stella. That means the field of stars. So from Campus Stella, it comes Compostela.
Wow.
So the name of the city means St. James of the field of stars. Santiago de Compostela.
Wow.
So that's why you are going to see stars everywhere.
That's interesting.
In Santiago, in most of the monuments, there are stars. In the streets, there are stars because it's the field of stars. So that's the legend about.
And I thought St. James came, I didn't realise, I thought he came alive.
Yes, he came.
Oh, he did come here.
That's right.
In the first century.
After Jesus' death, the 12 apostles, they were sent all over the world to spread Christian faith. And each of them, they chose a part of the world. So, for example, St. Thomas, he went to India. St. Andrew, he went to Greece, and St. James, he chose the Hispania, the Roman Hispania. So he came in here to Christianize this area. Actually, he was in Galicia also, preaching in here in Galicia, and well, in the Codex Callistinus is mentioned that St. James was in here. Actually, this was the last place that St. James visited when he was alive. Because from here, from Galicia, he returned to Jerusalem in the year 44, and And as soon as he arrived in Jerusalem, he was beheaded by the King Herod. So that's why after his death, Theodorus and Athanasius, they brought the mortal remains from there, from Jerusalem, to this place. And it is said also that it was a kind of tradition to bury the apostles in the last place where they had been preaching. So that's why St. Thomas was buried in India, and St. Andrew is buried in Greece. So
St.
they
Peter
were
in
buried.
Rome.
That's right, that's right. Because that was the last place where they were alive and they were preaching. So that's why they explained the decision of coming here to Galicia, because it was last place where he was alive.
I like that. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, there are so many stories about Santiago. You know, I was telling Catherine that it's not just a kind of religious destination. There is much more about our culture, pagan traditions, Christian beliefs. Voilà. So that's why in Santiago you mixed everything, and that's why it's so special, I think.
And is it the most popular part of the Camino? Because
Santiago?
well, Galicia into
Galicia.
Santiago.
Yes, I think so, because you know, it's unexpected. I mean, when you walk the Camino, the French way, of course you have this beautiful scenery, but it's more or less the same. I mean, there are no kind of lush sceneries or landscapes. I mean, it's kind of the same. And when they just enter Galicia and you start to see these mountains, it's like, oh my God, where was this? So it's very popular in that sense. Actually, many people, they start their Camino in Galicia.
Yeah.
In Cerejo or in the southern part, in Tuy, or I mean, many people, they chose the Camino. I mean, only the Galician part of the Camino. So I think it's one of the most popular. Yes. Well, you know, many people, they also do it because they just want La Compostela.
Yeah.
So that's why you just need 100 kilometers.
Oh, right.
Even
Okay.
the dogs. Because we have now a credential for the dogs. A dog's credential, yeah. And you needed to get a stamp, and at the end of the trail, you need to get the paw of the dog, the credential, and you will go to the Pilgrims Welcome Center, and they will give you the dog's credential. So, you know, I think that many people also, they choose the Galician part because they want La Compostela.
It's unusual, that thing over there, isn't it?
Yes, there's a pigeon dove, yeah.
What is it?
A pigeon dove, you know, a pigeon hut, pigeon house.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is it?
Yes, it is. You know, pigeons were very appreciated. Like 100 years ago, that was a kind of culinary delicacy.
Oh, really?
Here, yes, in here in Galicia. Actually, only rich people, they could have them, pigeon houses.
Uh-huh.
You know, here in Galicia, there's a sentence. When you see, you know, in Galicia we have pathos, which are like stately homes, manor houses. And in Galicia we say, capilla, palomar y ciprés, pazo es. So it means if you have a pigeon house, if you have a cypress trees, and if you have a chapel, it means that that's a palace or a manor house. So you need those three elements to be a kind of nobleman or to have a palace. Or so pigeon house is very important. Actually, after in the pandemic, many people that wanted to do it.
Did it, yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So now that's why we have so many Spanish people coming.
Yeah,
It's
there's
like-
so many. Yeah.
We noticed an awful lot.
Yes, lots of them, because they have seen.
They have the chance.
That's right. That's right. Many young people in the summer season, families with children,
Yeah.
that they do the Camino, groups from scholars and teenagers. So it's great.
The river's nice.
Yeah, we have to cross the river. We have now a bridge.
So you know, during the summer, then when there's bigger crowds arriving in,
That's right.
there must be an electric atmosphere. You know, when you've all these people coming in who have done, I suppose there's a lot of people that are.
Singing. I keep saying to you every time I see them, they're singing.
Yes.
I was singing songs and stuff. It's nice.
Really, yeah? I can imagine. Some people are probably sad too because it's over.
Yes.
Well, you know, after they arrive in Santiago, they can keep on walking.
To the sea.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, to finish Cerejo, which is the
end of the world,
the
yeah.
end of the world.
Yeah.
So many people, when they arrived in Santiago, they stay a couple of days,
Yeah.
and then they start to walk again
Oh,
to
crazy.
see the end of the world.
The other day we met. He'd been walking for 4 months. He'd walked from
4 months?
Warsaw in Poland.
Oh my.
Krakow in Poland, actually. Sorry.
Yeah,
Wow,
4 months.
4 months walking.
he was zipping along. That was yesterday, up at the
yeah,
pass.
Great pace.
Oh, really?
Going
Yeah.
fast, yeah. No,
Amazing.
he looked healthy.
Yeah. I think all is in your mind.
Yes.
I think your body does what your mind orders.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that's the key.
So the Americans are the biggest after the Spanish.
No, first Americans.
Oh,
The Americans.
Yeah, first Americans, then Spanish.
Wow.
Portuguese.
Brazilians?
No, Italians.
Oh, Italians. Huh?
Yes. Germans.
Yeah.
And then Brazilians.
And then Brazil.
And after Brazilians, Koreans.
Ah.
Yeah.
What about the Irish?
No, I was telling Catherine,
Not so many.
they are the 25th.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh,
I thought we'd be
Yeah.
way up the list.
No.
everyone I talked to was
That's
like
why-
playing Camino.
Yeah, she was telling me, I was surprised. Maybe I have met, I don't know, in 15 years, maybe 30 Irish
Wow.
along the way. It's not that big.
Yeah.
It was surprising for me to know that
Yeah.
it was big thing Camino in
Very
in
popular. Yeah, in Ireland. There's not many Irish people though, so
Ireland. That's
it's only
right.
4 million.
Yeah. Compared with the Americans.
Yeah.
Finally, you're going to hear a clip now from Philip Martin, who was on this podcast before, and he chose the Camino as his happy place. So I'm going to finish with this clip that sums up perfectly the magic of the Camino.
I did the Camino Santiago there, and I did it with a really good friend of mine from school. We did it, and my God, every single day, was a story I could tell you. But we got into a particular town, and it's the town after Rosavallas on the Camino. But anyway, we had a few drinks, as you do, following the walk of the day and a dinner. When we'd arrived into town, there was some kind of festival going on. Everything set up, and there was this kind of individual hand clapping in the air type thing. It's hard to describe, but it was a great bloody laugh. But I remember kind of taking a few minutes and walking up to the bridge as you come into town. And it's a tiny little town, and the bridge, there's this really beautiful arch bridge that could probably only maybe fit 2 people side by side as you walk over the bridge, and the water's was rushing underneath, and kind of you're back, or you're faced to the town and you're back to the forest, and you have looking in the middle of the night, you've the silence of the forest behind you, which we walked through that day. And then you're looking into the town, and you've all the various goings on and activity, and there was this kind of firework bull, which probably similarly wouldn't be allowed under any health and safety rules in Ireland, whereby they just strapped fireworks to a bull, a mechanical bull, and then that someone held, and then they ran around the place firing fireworks at everyone. So just absolute bedlam and madness, but the very best of it. And I remember just sitting on the bridge. I had a beer in my hand, back to the forest, face to the town, and just thinking it was absolutely bliss and just completely calm and chilled out. So, and especially when I spend kind of all day, every day, like running a million miles an hour with the business, kind of little moments of absolute calm are really, really, really nice. So that's what I think of.
Yeah, I think there's something particularly about walking, when you go into that zone, there's nothing like it, isn't there, for clearing the head?
No, there's not. And especially, on that particular journey, that trip, I turned off my phone for effectively, I think it was like a week on, a week off, or say a week on, and then I'd turn it on for a day and catch up with all this stuff, and then I'd turn it off again. So that's the most I could achieve in terms of time away from the business. I think we're all so switched on, always on at the moment, that you kind of forget, what it's like when you have a bit of time without the phone on constantly. But yeah, that regiment of, especially with the Camino, whereby you get up when it's, still dark, and you're walking through the forest, the sun rises, you're eating on a trail, and then you're arriving into a new town each day. You see everything for the first time, and you go to bed in that town, and you get up the next day and go somewhere else. I think it's really lovely, really great way of kind of resetting the clock of sorts.
Over the last 3 episodes, I've tried, and I hope I have captured some of the magic of walking on the Camino. I take a break now for Christmas, and I'll be returning in January with some really great guests with some really great travel stories. So if you haven't already, I'd ask that you'd follow or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and a brand new episode will drop at your phone in 2022. If you're looking for something to listen to over the Christmas, I've got 3 seasons of great interviews, and you can get them on traveltaleswithfergal.ie. So have a peaceful and happy Christmas. I look forward to seeing you again next year.
You're listening to Travel Tales with Fergal.